I am Quentin Collins, alum and associate director of LaSalle University's Solstice MFA in Creative Writing program. Welcome to the seventh in a series of 8 evening readings taking place here in Auburndale, Massachusetts, as part of our July 2026 10-day residency, start of our fall semester, and our 20th anniversary. So for tonight's reading, we will regale you with beautiful things. We first up will have alum and grad assistant Jessamin McSwain, who will be introduced by fellow alum and graduate assistant Maurizio Turco. Yeah. You can clap as much as you want to. Then we will have fiction for young people and adults faculty member Adi Rule, who will be introduced by our writing for young people student Ivy Alphonse Crean. All right, and then we will conclude with our guest faculty member returning for the first time in 8 years, Zoraida Cordova, who will be introduced by writing for young people student Sarah Lewis. So, Maurizio, come on up to the mic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maurizio Turco. As Quentin said, I'm a Solstice alum and grad assistant, and tonight I have the honor of introducing fellow alum and grad assistant Jessamin McSwain. When I first met Jess, I was entering my 3rd semester as a student. At the time, she was the youngest student enrolled in the program, but her old soul, insight, and wisdom permeated through the vibrant aura consistently wrapped around her. Jess is kind, always wanting to help others, and gives you the feedback that is sometimes hard, but is the most helpful because she wants to see you grow into the best writer she knows you can become. She is the embodiment of a writer who falls in love with the work of others, as many of those who have interacted with her can attest. She is a voracious reader and loves to talk about all elements of writing with those who will listen. Recently, I sent some work to Jess in a post-grad packet exchange, and she noted areas where I used passive voice. As a student, I struggled at first with active versus passive voice and occasionally still do, but Jess gave me sound advice. She told me, use active voice, you did that shit, own it. Whenever I begin a new project, this is the advice I turn to. Aside from giving great advice, Jess is a brilliant writer. Her manuscript, Far From Venus, follows 2 storylines of Commander Dario Vidkov from Earth and Kata Mihia, a human dispersed elsewhere thousands of years ago. In her work, Jess blends science fiction with elements of romance, adventure, and intense world building to give her readers the ride of their lives. Her characters face many obstacles and challenges, both physically and emotionally, which creates a story of relatability. Jess is the light that ignites Solstice's torch. Many of us gravitate towards her light whenever we need writing advice, life advice, or just want to catch up with a wonderful friend. Whether it's to hear her near-death experience with a piece of paper and a certain water bottle, or to hear the most sensual and erotic piece of writing involving a magical civilization of morels hoping to go up, up, up towards the sun, or to simply admire her as the great writer, human, photographer, and friend we have all come to know. It is with great pleasure that we give a warm welcome to Jessamin McSwain.
Hi, I'm Short. Pleasure to meet you. Wait, I've told this joke before, haven't I? Okay. Thank you, Maurizio. You're a great friend, and I am beyond inspired by your work, and it's just a pleasure to know you. As well as Quentin and Meg and all of the people here, right? I will be reading from my novel, my manuscript, Far From Venus. It also happened to be my creative thesis while I was here. The particular scene that I am reading tonight was bouncing around in my head all the way from my drive from Missouri up here to Boston. And it wasn't until 2 days ago that I wrote it here on campus and then revised it and then read it a lot. Because, anxiety. A little bit of context that you need to know is that in Far From Venus, there is an offshoot of humanity that was removed from Earth during the Ice Age and were placed on a moon by aliens, which maybe they worship or something. Once here, their biology changed, and they developed psionics, the ability to communicate with their minds, to feel with their minds, to wonder with their minds in a capacity normal humans from Sol, from Earth, are unable to do. This flashback scene begins chapter 8, and a slight warning, there is some violence at the end. Kata, don't look away. Fingers curled around Kata's chin, her view of the shifting sands beneath her sandaled feet replaced by her grandmother, Hukama, bound, head lowered as if in prayer. Bruises covered Hukama's face, neck, and arms. When she stared for too long, Kata could see the prints of the thumbs that once constricted her grandmother's body. Hukama's hair, once tightly curled obsidian, had been shaved by Master Lieli, exposing the visage of coagulated blood clinging to the cuts on her scalp. Red blisters dashed her lip. Dark skin wrinkled purple around her eyes, and it made Kata think of the cookies her grandmother made for her birthday each year. The cookies she would never eat again. As she soaked in the detail of her grandmother's body, Kata counted the injuries. Too many bruises, too much dried blood, too much evidence of the violence enacted against a woman whose sole mission beyond the edict was to encourage interpretation of the Holy Scripture. Questions flooded Kata's mind, but one commonality linked them. Why? Pay attention, her grandfather, Master Elmari, said. His voice shook. His words were a warning, not an order. His fingers relinquished her chin, and his arm fell limp to his side. It might be you someday who must administer the justice in the name of the gods. The Holy Mother granted you the land you walk upon, bestowed you with her grace and intelligence, with the sacred gift of the Moat, and you squandered it. As Master Lieli invoked the name of the gods, the execution began. Elmari shifted on his feet. Kata knew she should be watching her grandmother, the Arif turned traitor, but her gaze turned towards her grandfather. The hand that had yanked her vision aloft clenched and unclenched. When that wasn't enough to settle him, he picked at the edges of his fingernails, tearing at his cuticles until they threatened to bleed. It was rare to see him like this. The temperamental master became a worried husband. For once, he seemed like a man and not stone. Kata hesitated. Then she reached out and took her grandfather's hand in her own. He stiffened, glancing at her with an unspoken appreciation. Master Lieli's voice rose. The gods know you gathered in the shadows with lesser-minded men and women and warped their minds with whispered heresy. The revered lost scream for restitution for the lies you have spread in the name of interpretation. Hukama Mihia, you know well the gods' words are set, certain beyond all doubt. You were an Arif. Indignation shook the master's voice. Fervor ran through the citadel's courtyard. The crowd jeered. Kata sought her parents in the mass. The Mahias stood arm in arm. Her mother, Batya, chin held high, defiant, but Kata could see the quiver of her pursed lips, the thunderstorm brewing in her eyes. Batya had wept the night before. Kata, just a girl, didn't know why then, but now she understood the meaning of the song the groan and creak of the floorboards sang. Her mother had been trying to find a solution, to prove Hukama's innocence. But was there ever a right thing to say? Was there anything to be done against the edict? Or was Kata's grandmother too proud of what she'd done to see any other end than this one? Perhaps that's a conclusion Batya came to when she descended the stairs. When she slipped into Kata's bedroom, where Kata pretended to be asleep, back turned towards the door, Batya pulled the blanket over Kata's shoulder. She lingered, sighed. Batya put her face in her hands, pressed herself gently against Kata. She imagined her mother's resigned prostration at her daughter's bedside. Kata didn't want to use her moat then. It happened of its own volition, as it always does. Before she realized what she was doing, Kata was sitting, legs crossed, beside a deep, spring-fed well of cold, fresh emotion. Her mother's emotion. Kata offered her outstretched hands to the water, taking the cold liquid in her palms. She felt her mother's anxiety. The tightly wound worry in Batya's chest pulled as taut as the woolen spools the weavers used to craft tapestries. Kata plucked at it as she might do to an oud, fumbling to do anything more than make it ring. Batya's fear slipped through Kata's grasp, dripping back into the well. Your crimes against the gods have been recorded by the blessed daughter, Mastieli was shouting again. Your judgment passed by the virtuous son. Baba, her father, touched Batya's arm and pulled her closer. While her mother watched the dais and her own mother's final moments, Baba's eyes met Kata's. He seemed to say, "It will be okay." In your last moments, what say you to the gods, Hukama? Elmari's hand squeezed Kata's. He didn't correct Kata or force her to watch. Her grandfather froze. It was as if he couldn't look away. Action failed him as a sense of duty to the faith overwhelmed his love for his wife, for his family. Goosebumps rose on his flesh. His lips were moving as if he was speaking, but it made no sound. Was Ilmare using his moat to whisper to Hukama, to tell her one last time that he loved her? Hukama raised her head. She said, unshaken, I speak not to the gods, but to their children, to the people of Atu. The edict is not your only choice. Crack! A bow staff swung, colliding with the back of Hukama's knee. Master Lieli sneered. A rusted blade rose, a cruel implement intended for farming made executor's tool. It fell upon Hukama's neck. Chop! Kata curled into her grandfather's kaftan. It wasn't a clean cut. Chop! Again the blade sang and it crunched on bone. Chop! Her grandmother collapsed onto the makeshift dais as she choked on her tongue. Master Ilmare clung to Kata's shoulders, holding her head to his stomach as she cried, Amma, no! Thank you.
Yeah, this works. Greetings. My name is Ivy, and I'm in my 4th semester here at Solstice, and I am so happy to introduce Adi Rule. It wasn't the overalls or her voice that I noticed in the STC when Adi touched down a few days ago. Rather, shimmering purple hair as fractal and iridescent as chicken feathers. So much of Adi is iridescent, from her presence to her feedback. Under her eyes, a manuscript's colors can shift, certain aspects of rainbow luster brought forth with the right piece of feedback. Her illumination on the mundane drudgery of revision. Adi is for ghosts, for chickens, and long-lost sisters. She is for tangled forests and sociopathic valedictorians. Her body of work spans 6 novels, each of which complicates familiar tropes. The city mouse in the country house of ghost chickens, the perfectionist on a quest for truth and vengeance, sisterly warmth encased in ice. Chickens, you may know, and if you don't, you will, chickens, you may know, have a massive 300-degree field of vision compared to a human's mere 180 degrees. Chickens, and of course, Audie Rule, who creates expansive narratives where setting, character, and plot all harmonize in concert. You'll see what I mean on the pages of her novels Ghost Chickens, Nell and the Nether Beast, Why Would I Lie, Hearts of Ice, The Hidden Twin, and Strange Sweet Song. As a mentor, Audie knows just which threads to tug. As the extra cone in chicken retinas allow them to see ultraviolet light and hues beyond red, blue, and green, Audie's eyes see right through the page to the core conceit of a novel or story. It's no wonder she's led workshops throughout New England for 826 Boston, the VCFA Young Writers Network, the New Hampshire Writers Project, and that she serves here as a member of the faculty of the Solstice Masters of Fine Arts in Creative Writing program right here at LaSalle University. Catching every inconsistency, every comma out of place, every potential motivation yet to be explored. Just when you think she might be limited to craft suggestions, she reminds you that while one eye focuses on the literature of it all, the other is fully capable of focusing on practical concerns and life advice, like don't hold yourself to the best version of yourself in the best circumstances. Be where you are now. You know, chickens have eyes that can independently focus on multiple subjects at once. Chickens, and of course, Audie Rule. I'm not sure what subject Audie will read about tonight, and actually I am because she did tell me earlier. Might be chickens, but I can guarantee you it will be handled deftly with precise language, attention to detail, and distinct character, voice, perhaps clucks. We are so very lucky to have her prose chorus through this space, even for just a few minutes. So please join me in welcoming Audie Rule.
Oh my goodness. Ivy, thank you so much. That was really lovely. And what a joy to have gotten to read so much of your work this last semester. Thank you to Meg and Quinton. Thanks, Jess and Maurizio. Jess, that was amazing. Where are you? Yeah. It's an honor to be up here tonight with my fellow readers. And as part of this series, it's the best thing in the entire world to be back at Solstice with all of you. So, yay. And what a fantastic, amazing job the student readings were tonight. So last time I read from my upcoming novel, Ghost Chickens, which comes out September 1st. But I do write other things other than Ghost Chickens. So tonight, for a change, I'm going to read from the first draft of a novel that's coming out in 2027, and it's called Ghost Chickens 2, Electric Cockadoo. And what you need to know is that the main character, Florence, who is an amateur journalist, lives in a farmhouse in the country with her parents and a bunch of ghost chickens, including her best chicken friend, Bob. And one day, the town assessor shows up to assess the property. So we're starting midway through chapter 2, called Not Enough Chickens. Mom and I take the assessor on a tour of the house and yard. Yvonne writes on her clipboard and occasionally takes out a measuring tape and measures things. Sometimes she asks a question. Once she uses the word depreciated. All the ghost chickens outside are very interested in our visitor. They stare at Yvonne from the tops of fence posts and the roof of their coop. Some of them follow her around the yard like she is a tour guide and they are little tourists on vacation. Please contact me at Town Hall if you have any questions, Dr. Fortescue. I'll leave you my card, Yvonne says. When the assessing is done, she has a ghost chicken on her head. Be a good girl, Florence. I'm always good, I say. Bob, Yvonne is leaving. Yvonne doesn't ask who Bob is. She would not make a good reporter. Bob flaps from Yvonne's head back to my shoulder with a thump. Some people don't realize that chickens can fly. And I mean, they're not graceful about it. but they can make it happen. Oh, yes. Yvonne glances down at her clipboard. There is just the one item of concern. She looks at Mom, that large chicken coop in the backyard. I narrow my eyes at her. I don't know what an item of concern is, but it doesn't sound good. Bob fluffs her feathers a little. The chicken coop? Mom asks. What about it? Yvonne taps her clipboard with a pencil. Well, if I may ask, when do you plan to get some chickens? I stifle a laugh. Bob gives a giggly, "Buck, buck, chickens?" Yvonne has no idea. I look at Mom and grin, but she's not smiling. We're not planning to keep chickens, Mom says, which is a lie. We already have chickens. We have chickens coming out our eyeballs. Just step into the backyard and you'll see them running around in the grass, taking dust baths among the petunias, and floating upside down in the pool. Yvonne frowns. No chickens? Not ever? Mom shrugs. Oh, Yvonne means live chickens. So here's the thing. You know how some people get really freaked out by the idea of a haunted house? Well, it turns out animals are kind of the same way. They don't want to live with ghosts, no matter how harmless they are. And believe me, there's nothing less dangerous than a ghost chicken. They can't even peck you. Their beaks go right through your shins. So putting live chickens in with our flock of paranormal poultry would be like locking someone in a specter-infested mausoleum. I give a little shudder at the thought. Yvonne says, tapping her clipboard again. Well, unfortunately, empty chicken coops are against town ordinance. You'll have to remove it. Hang on. Remove it? Remove the chicken coop? I shudder again, only this time it's a big shudder because the last time the ghost chickens didn't have a coop to live in, they invaded our house. And it was chicken chaos. They swung from the chandelier, slid down the banister, and ordered several Conway Twitty albums off the internet with my parents' credit card. But the coop is important to us, Mom says. Her eyes have gotten a little wider. I can tell she's big shuddering on the inside, like me. It's aesthetic. Why isn't Mom telling the whole story? We have ghost chickens, I explain, plenty of them, so we absolutely need the coop to stay. Bah, Bob says. Exactly, Bob, I say. But Yvonne doesn't even look at me. I wish there was something I could do, Dr. Fortescue, she says, but you can't have an empty chicken coop on your property. It's town ordinance. We have chickens, I say louder. We have ghost chickens. Yvonne makes a smacking sound with her lips. Well, ghosts don't pay taxes, I'm afraid. So you'll have 30 days to either get some non-ghost chickens or remove the coop. Goodbye. We watch Yvonne and her clipboard leave. Mom's mouth is doing that squiggly thing it does when she's not happy about something. I feel my mouth doing the same thing. Ark, ark, Bob clucks. You're right, Bob, Mom says. This could be a problem. Chapter 3. Gloom and Doom. Headline: Coop Catastrophe. Ghost Chicken's residents at risk. Bob and I stare at the headline I have just typed on my mom's laptop. It's the latest scuttlebutt in progress. Too bad the top story is about disaster. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. It snaps me out of my journalism blues. Jupiter Lee, I yell, jumping off the couch. Bob plummets into the throw pillows. This time, when I fling open the front door, there isn't a woman with a clipboard there. Instead, I'm looking at an almost 11-year-old kid in neon green sunglasses and a jean jacket covered with old-timey political buttons. You're here, I say, hugging the best friend of all time. I am here, Jupiter Lee says, for a whole 2 weeks. We run to the living room while Jupiter Lee's mom, Tina, sits down for a cup of tea in the kitchen. Hi, Bob, Jupiter Lee says. Bob has turned on my dad's old record player and is perched on the edge, jamming out to the sounds of the 1980s band Devo. First things first, I say. Jupiter Lee, I am delighted to inform you that you are the winner of the first annual Florence Fortescue Medal for Excellence in Best Friending. I hand them a small copper tag that says rabies on it. This is a placeholder until I can make the real one. I am honored, they say. I will put this on a chain and wear it every day. They tuck the tag into a pocket next to a button that says Kennedy/Johnson, America's Men for the 60s. Then I take a deep breath, and now for the bad news. The ghost chicken's coop is in danger? My eyes widen. How did you guess? They point to the laptop screen. I saw your disturbing headline. This is why Jupiter Lee is an outstanding journalist. They are observant. Give me all the details, please, they say. I do. Bob falls beak first onto the turntable with a squawk and begins spinning around uncontrollably with her legs thrashing in the air. She kicks the volume knob all the way up and the house shakes to its foundations with the roar of new wave guitars. Hey kids, can you turn the music down? Mom calls from the kitchen. She and Tina come into the living room with their teacups. It was Bob, Jupiter Lee says as I pull the spinning ghost chicken off Devo's greatest hits and click the record player off. Who turned off the tunes? A voice calls from the hallway. I was rocking out over here. Apparently my dad has just gotten home. He was out all morning getting more electric knobs put on his ukulele. Rock, Bob says, agreeing with him. Dad strolls into the living room. He notices all our grumpy faces. Why the scowls, owls? We all take deep breaths at the same time and start to explain about the assessor. Even Bob chimes in. Whoa, 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 Dad puts up his hands. The town says we can't have an empty coop? Not a problem. I have 25 live chickens in the car. My jaw drops. Jupiter Lee's eyebrows shoot up. Tina tilts her head like a confused puppy. You have what? Mom says. Her mouth squiggles. You brought home more chickens without asking us? Dad grins. Good thing, too. Looks like they're the solution to our problem. I look at Jupiter Lee. I guess a bunch of live chickens could be the solution to our problem. Or our problem could have just gotten a lot bigger. Chapter 4. 25 live chickens in the car. I thought you were out getting more knobs put on your electric ukulele, Mom says. We all file out the door to the driveway. I did, Dad says. It's going to sound epic. I just don't understand, Mom says slowly, like a cat with its ears back, getting ready to slash the sofa. How you went out for ukulele knobs and came home with live birds. Were they giving out chickens at the music store? Jupiter Lee asks. That's an excellent question, Jupiter Lee, Mom says. We all look in the window of the car. The back seat is covered with squawking chickens and feathers and gooey blobs of chicken poop. Bob starts squawking too. She flaps from my shoulder to my head, then over to Jupiter Lee's head, then back to my head. She is discombobulated. Sorry. It's a funny story, Dad says. I can tell from Mom's face that it better be a very funny story. It better be out of this world hilarious. You know Jefferson, our mail carrier? Dad asks. No, Mom says. You know, Dad waves his arms. Jeffaroo, the Jeffinator, Jeff, Bobeth, Banana Fana. I don't know Jeff, Mom says. She doesn't know Jeff, Tina adds. Well, you should, Dad says. He's very nice. Anyway, I met Jefferson at the music store. He was buying polish for his sack butt. Dad turns to me as a squawking chicken throws itself against the window of the car like it's trying to break out of prison. A sack butt, Florence, is a kind of 15th century trombone. Bok, bok, Bob says. Bob, I say, now is not the time to be discussing musical instruments of the Renaissance. We should get those chickens out of the car, Tina says as a hen starts rattling the door handle. Tina is a librarian. She is very organized. We can't put them in the coop, Mom says. They'll flip their feathers. Bok, bok, Bob agrees. So Jeff gave you these chickens? Jupiter Lee asks. Dad nods. Yes, see, they were in his car, which he uses for his postal deliveries, and you can't have live chickens sitting in with the mail. It's against the rules. There sure are a lot of rules about where chickens are and are not supposed to be, I say. Bob flaps to the roof of our car and leans over, peering in upside down through the window. I hate to ask this, Mom says, but why did Jefferson have hens in the mail car? Dad's voice gets low and excited like he's telling a terrible secret. I call it gossip voice. It was his poor mother, he says. She was taken in by a slick door-to-door rooster salesman, sold her a prize roo, said he needed deluxe bedding, mood lighting, a recording of relaxing tunes on the pan flute, the works, all of which the guy happened to also be selling, by the way, cost her a mint. Then the salesman tells her this prize roo needs his very own coop, so she figured the other chickens had to go. Bob mutters. Yeah, sounds suspicious, I agree. But what can we do with them? Mom asks. Everybody jumps as a chicken lays on the horn. At the noise, all 4 of the neighbor's dogs start barking next door. Oh no, I say. They've depreciated all over the back seat. Thank you.
Perfect height. Hello, my name is Sarah Lewis. I am a 3rd semester writing for young people student, and I have the privilege to introduce Zoraida Cordova. When I was first asked to introduce Zoraida, I naturally looked her up so I could start familiarizing myself with her and her work. And when I opened her website and the first book of hers that popped up was a Star Wars book, I thought, hooray, a fellow nerd! I'm going to love her work, and I have been loving her work. Zoraida's 2016 young adult fantasy novel Labyrinth Lost, the first book in her Brooklyn Brujas trilogy, won an International Latino Book Award. She and Natalie C. Parker co-edited the best-selling short story anthology Vampires Never Get Old, Tales with Fresh Bite, which is about, you guessed it, vampires. And she has 3 short stories in 3 new anthologies forthcoming this year. Born in Guayaquil, Ecuador, residing in New York City, and having written over 24 novels and short stories since 2012, Zoraida is always in search of magical stories. As is the case in her writing, Zoraida is generous and thoughtful in her teaching. Her class from earlier today on fantasy world building was a masterclass in creating larger-than-life worlds, leading us on a journey of how to create fantastical narratives for ourselves. Her enthusiasm for her craft was apparent from the very start of class. I know I felt invigorated from her insights. So whether it's about a family of witches or a galaxy far, far away, Zoraida's stories have something for everyone, and I'm sure if you ask her, she'd love to tell you all about them. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce Zoraida Cordova.
Hello. Just down a little tiny bit. Thank you. I'm going to be reading 2 short things. Oh, I think this is falling down. But first of all, thank you, Quentin, for adjusting this and for organizing everything with Meg. It's so great to see you all again. I'm going to read from my novel, The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina. I'm not going to tell you much about it. It's magical realism, multi-generational family deal, and the closest to the women of my family that I'll ever get, except my family members are nicer. Part 1, Invitation to Witness a Death. The Invitation. You are invited to my home on May 14th, the year of the hummingbird. Please begin to arrive no earlier than 1:04 p.m., as I have many matters to settle before the event. The stars have shifted, the earth has turned. The time is here. I am dying. Come and collect your inheritance. Eternally, Orquídea Divina Montoya. Chapter 1, The Woman and the House That Had Never Been. For many mornings, there had been nothing but barren land. Then one day, there was a house, a woman, her husband, and a rooster. The Montoyas arrived in the town of 4 Rivers in the middle of the night without fanfare or welcome wagons or cheesy limp green bean dishes or flaky apple pies offered in an attempt to get to know the new neighbors. Though in truth, before their arrival, the townspeople had stopped paying much attention to who came and went anymore. Finding 4 Rivers on a map was nearly impossible, as the roads were still mostly gravel, and the memory of the place lived only in the minds of those who remained on purpose. Yes, there had been railroads once, great iron veins hammered into the rocky ground, connecting the dusty heart of a country with an identity that changed depending on where the lines were drawn. If a traveler took a wrong turn on a highway, they used the 4 Rivers gas station and old diner. When any visitor asked what 4 Rivers intersected to give the town its name, the locals would scratch their heads and say something, why all the rivers had dried out since 1892. Other than Garrett's pump station and the Sunshine Diner offering bottomless coffee for $1.25, 4 Rivers could claim a population of 748 people. A farmer's market, a stationery store, the world's 8th largest meteor hole, the site of a mass dinosaur grave which was debunked by furious paleontologists who had nothing nice to say in their journal about the prank pulled by the graduating class of '87, the only video rental store for miles, Four Rivers High School, winners of the 1977 Regional Football Championship, and the smallest post office in the country, which was the only thing preventing them from becoming a ghost town. Four Rivers was special for reasons the living population had all but forgotten. It was, in the most general sense, magic adjacent. There are locations all over the world where power is so concentrated that it becomes the meeting ground for good and evil. Call them nexuses, call them ley lines, call them Eden. Over the centuries, as Four Rivers lost its water sources, its magic faded too, leaving only a weak pulse beneath its dry mountains and plains. That pulse was enough. In the dip of the valley where the Four Rivers had once intersected, Orquídea Montoya built her house in 1960. Built was a bit of a stretch since the house appeared, as if from the ether. No one was there when the skeletal foundation was laid or the shutters were screwed in, and not a single local could remember having seen tractors or bulldozers or construction workers. But there it was, 5 bedrooms, an open living room with a fireplace, 2.5 bathrooms, a kitchen and with well-loved appliances, and a wraparound porch with a little swing where Orquídea could watch the land change around her. The most ordinary part of the house was the attic, which only contained the things the Montoyas no longer had use for, and Orquídea's troubles. The entire place would become the thing of nightmares and ghost stories for the people who drove to the top of the hill on the only road in or out and stopped, watching and waiting for a peek at the strange family living within. Once they realized they had a new permanent neighbor, the people of Four Rivers decided to start paying attention again to who came and went. Who exactly were these Montoyas? Where had they come from? Why don't they come to Mass? And who, in God's grasshopper green earth, painted their shutters such a dark color? Orquídea's favorite color was the blue of twilight, just light enough that the sky no longer appeared black, but before pinks and purples bled into it. She thought that color captured the moment the world held its breath, and she'd been holding hers for such a long time. That was the blue that accented the shutters and the large front door. A few months after her arrival, on her first venture into town to buy a car, she learned that all the ranch-style houses were painted in tame, watery pastels. Nothing about Orquídea's house was accidental. She dreamt of a place of her own since she'd been a little girl, and when she'd finally acquired it, the most important things were the colors and the protections. For someone like Orquídea Divina Montoya, who'd had attained everything through stubborn will and a bit of thievery, it was not just important to protect it, but to hold on to it. That is why every window pane and every door had a gold laurel leaf pressed seamlessly onto the surface, not just to keep the magic in, but to keep danger out. Orquídea had carried her house with her for so long, in her heart, in her pockets, in her suitcase, and when it couldn't fit, in her thoughts. She carried that house in search for a place with a pulse of magic to anchor it. In total, Orquídea and her second husband had journeyed for 4,898 miles, give or take a few. Some by carriage, some by ship, some by rail, and the last 20 solidly on foot. By the time she was done traveling, the wanderlust in her veins had all dried up. Eventually, she'd have children and grandchildren, and she'd see the rest of the world through glossy postcards that cover the entire refrigerator. Like some, for her, one pilgrimage was enough. She didn't need to measure her worth by collecting passport stamps and learning 6 languages. Those were dreams for a girl left behind, one who had seen the pitch black of the seamless sea and who had once stood at the center of the world. She'd lived 100 lives in different ways, but no one, not her 5 husbands or descendants, really knew her. Not in the way you can know someone, down to their bones, down to the secrets that could only be augured in bloody guts. What was there to know? 5'1", brown skin, black hair, blackest eyes. Orquídea Montoya was untethered to the world by fate. Ugh, I lost my place. The two most important moments of her life had been predetermined by the stars. First, at her birth, and second, the day she stole her fortune. Her birthplace was a small neighborhood in the coastal city of Guayaquil, Ecuador. People think they know about misfortune and bad luck, but there was being unlucky, like when you tripped over your shoelaces or dropped a $5 bill in the subway, or ran into your ex when you were wearing 3-day-old sweatpants. And then there was the kind of bad luck that Orquídea had. Bad luck woven into the birthmarks that dotted her shoulders and chests like constellations. Bad luck that felt like the petty revenge of a long-forgotten god. Her mother, Isabela Montoya, had blamed her sin first and the stars second. The latter was true in more ways than one. Orquídea was born during a time when the planets converged to create the singularly worst luck a person could ask for, a cosmic debt that was not her fault. And yet fate was coming to collect like a bookie. It was May 14th, 3 minutes to midnight, when Orquídea chose to kick herself out of the womb before getting stuck halfway, as if she knew the world was not a safe place. Every nurse and doctor on shift rushed to help the lonely, young mother. At 12:02 a.m. on May 15th, the baby was finally yanked out, half dead with her umbilical cord wrapped around her little neck. The old nurse on shift remarked how the poor girl would lead an indecisive life, a foot here and the other there, half present and half gone, unfinished. When she left Ecuador for good, she learned how to leave pieces of herself behind, pieces that her descendants would one day try to collect and put her back together. It took 20 years and 2 husbands, but Orquídea made it to the United States. Despite having been born on a cosmic convergence of bad luck, Orquídea had discovered a loophole. But that's to come later in her story. This is about the woman and the house that had never been, until one day they were undeniably there. Thank you. I finished that book approximately in 2019, and in 2019 I also wrote a poem called Creed, my Creed poem. And for those of you who don't know, Meg sort of started this incredible poem format that we learned in our poetry class when I went to the National Book Foundation writing camp in 2005 and 2006. And that's when I wrote my first Creed poem, which is a list of personal truths. And then I revisited that 15 years later in 2019 for my New Year's Instagram poem, which I promised Meg I would read today. I believe I am an orange cut in half and nothing rhymes with orange. I believe in the witching hour and that salt wards off ghosts, but I am haunted by a burden I never asked for. I believe in Starbucks points and the sale rack and a purse filled with hair ties to keep me bound together, pens that bleed all over my fingers because the ink is etched so deep in my skin that I can be made of anything else but stories, though I might run out of time and breath to tell them. I believe in kindness and truth, but I have never been honest with myself. I should be the first person that matters, but sometimes I am no one and feel like no one. I believe in New York pizza and Coney Island dirt embedded under my fingertips. I believe I am a mermaid that was stripped of her fins, and I am just trying to find my way back home. I believe in binge watching and books so sharp I beg for their paper cuts. I believe that I have inherited my grandmother's heart and the wanderlust she never got to taste. I believe in the Pleiades and that Han shot first and whiskey that burns so good it's like the first chill of winter. I gave myself up into tiny pieces and I may not remember how to put myself back together again. Sometimes I wish for oceans so blue I could drown in them. I believe I am waiting for real, true love, but maybe, like sin and God, it doesn't exist for girls like me. I believe in magic and coffee so bitter it goes down like bad medicine. I can't live without it. I believe in blood red smiles and girls with sharp teeth and sharper claws. I believe the only thing that matters is finding beauty in yourself, in a world that tells you your face, your skin, your whole self is not enough. I am a galaxy of witches waiting to be spoken. I believe I have met you once before. I lost you like I lost my mother tongue. I cannot wait to remember you and learn you all over again. Thank you.
Can we have one more round of applause for Jess, Adi, and Zoraida?